Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Tim Selden, and this is the Independent School Leaders Forum. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Lindsay Pollock, Provost of the First Montessori University, Sarasota University in beautiful Sarasota, Florida. With us this week are a number of guests from the Montessori Research Collaborative. Um, they are Dr. Sharon DeMoore, among others, and Dr. Nancy Lindeman. They have other friends with them, and I'll just turn it over to you and allow. I see you've got IMC, a Gathering of Montessori Leaders. Actually, this is not an IMC event, it's a Montessori Foundation event, but that's okay. We're
Sorry
thrilled to
about
have
that.
you. No worries. We love the IMC. As you know, we founded it, but they are now independent and separate and standing on their own 2 feet. And we're really happy to see that. So again, we're thrilled to have you, and please take it away.
Thank you, Tim, for reminding us of that. Montessori Foundation, a gathering of Montessori leaders to learn more about the Montessori Research Collective, which is tough to remember. It's a collective, but it is a collective, and we'll talk about that as we go forward. We're delighted to have you here and to share more about the MRC as we reference it, along with the opportunity to just connect with one another today. We're your hosts, Nancy Lindeman and Sharon DeMoore, and we're longtime Montessorians and forever friends, and we're truly happy to be with you today. Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, working together is success. Henry Ford, the founder of Ford Motor Company. All right, here's today's agenda. Welcome. Catch up with Montessori colleagues, learn about MRC, what's happening in research, and we have some guest researchers and a conclusion. We'd love for you to put into the chat your name, your title, and just maybe something brief about your interest in research, or maybe how research would benefit your role in Montessori. We'd love to see that. We don't know if we'll get to all that today, but it's kind of interesting for us. And we're thinking that you are interested in research and that we could take back some of that content to the MRC. Okay, next slide, please. And it's always fun, I think, to say hello to old friends and maybe some new acquaintances here. Our shared story. Again, welcome to us talking about MRC. We're all fortunate not just to contribute to Montessori, or like Nancy and I, it seems like we've contributed to Montessori over the years, but we've also found the opportunity to find wonderful lifelong friends along the way. And I'm sure all of you feel that way. It's certainly true for Nancy and me. We met about 12 years ago at a MACD symposium. And at that time, I was the chair of the AMS Research Committee and Nancy, TEP director of Westminster University. And she was up at the podium and she was sharing some exciting news about a Utah donor interested in supporting a Montessori research retreat. And I reached out to Angela Murray, who at that time was the AMS research consultant, and the three of us began a collaboration that ultimately led to 10 years of convenings for the Montessori Research Working Group. And that was first at Westminster University and later at the University of Kansas. And I have to tell you, over the years, Nancy and I discovered we have even more in common than research. Often happens when you're sharing with your Montessori friends, right? I said, I'm from Oklahoma. She says, I'm from Oklahoma. And the common stories just continued and continued. And she was even one of my students at the University of Wisconsin, River Falls, the doctoral Montessori study program. And yes, it's now Dr. Nancy Lindeman. So I'd like to introduce Nancy Lindeman, Dr. Lindeman, my dear Montessori colleague and friend forever. Dr. Lindeman, could you share a little bit about the MRC with our folks today?
Yeah, I'd love to, Sharon. Thanks, all of you, for letting us come and join you today. We are thrilled to talk to you about the Montessori Research Collective, which is a wonderful group. And we've got, including Dr. Pollock with us. We're so thrilled that she's in our MRC group with us, and glad that she could invite us to join today. The MRC became a reality in 2024 when we were all together at the University of Kansas, when our funding network had really become to dwindle. And we decided that we had to make a decision. Were we going to continue to go forward and have this group, which had been so instrumental in many of our lives, especially those of us that were researchers who were beginning in the field of research? The support we received was very important. And we just didn't feel like we could stop. We weren't ready to lose the legacy, the work that we had done together. We had really produced some really great support systems, the one being something that many of you may know about, the Montessori logic model that originally came out of our work. And we had a wonderful opportunity for scholars to work together in producing research that strengthened the Montessori community in general. So that weekend, the MRC was born, the Montessori Research Collective, out of shared commitment and friendship and a belief that this work must continue. And so you can see here, this is our shared story. We have a wonderful group of people. The first group on the left was one of our beginning meetings, and then the one on the right was one of our most recent meetings when we did decide we were going to move forward. The MRC is an independent collective that generates, coordinates, and disseminates Montessori research in the fields of education and human development. Let me push a slide forward here that talks a little bit about what we do. And we are supporting new researchers. A lot of our doctoral candidates are involved in MRC for that support. They also are presenting and having an opportunity, as they are today, to share our research. And then we operate in such a great format that we now are even doing writing groups once a month. And we have a arm of our organization called the Friends of Montessori Research Collective, which is our fundraising arm. And we're excited to talk to you a little bit about that today also. We organized as a meta task meeting. Am I on slide 5? Here we go. We organized as a meta task team with additional task teams that oversee and implement the work of the collective. And these are our current task teams. We have the continuity of work, events, finance and development, communications and membership, and the AERA Montessori SIG connection. And I just mentioned about our nonprofit arm, the Friends of Montessori Research Collective. And the budget that we are aiming towards each year is about $20,000 annually. And with that budget, we support the work of MRC, and we convene in October. We have a team facilitator. We have a presence at the American Educational Research Association conference each year, AERA. And in the future, with a little more funding, we are hoping to scholarship or voucher graduate students and young scholars to attend our fall convening. And that is really important for us to be able to move this work forward. These are the universities currently that we are affiliated with. And that's quite a list if you look at that. And we probably have some new ones since this has come up, but you'll see that many of your favorites and many that you may be affiliated with are on this list. And we're excited that we can share that with you. Sharon, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so this is just some photographs of our researchers at the AERA conference this year. And Nancy was just alluding to that. So we now have presence at the American Educational Research Association conference, which I have to tell you is a conference of about 10,000 researchers across the country. We have a special interest group. And so we have research papers that are being presented at AERA, and it looks like they're having a lot of fun there to me. But yes, it's a very serious scholarly convening of university professors and associate professors and researchers. So we just like to take a moment and share with you some of the examples of the exciting research that is happening. And we believe that much of this has happened with the support of some of the mentors in the MRC. So Dr. Caroline Robbins is one of our newest doctoral graduates from the University of Wisconsin River Falls. So Caroline, would you like to, we have to applaud because she just finished. So Caroline, would you like to share some of your research?
Happy to. Thank you, Sharon and Nancy. It's nice to see some familiar faces here, including Regina. You were at the presentation from yesterday, so thanks for being here today. So, as Nancy and Sharon stated, I'm Dr. Caroline Robbins. I recently completed my doctorate at University of Wisconsin River Falls in Montessori studies, and I'm also a public Montessori administrator in Milwaukee Public Schools. So, I recently conducted a qualitative case study on public Montessorians in the US and their perceptions of teacher evaluation and really appraisal and their professional growth. So, throughout this research, I was really fortunate to receive some support and mentoring from the MRC. Emily and I were at one of their recent gatherings at KU in Lawrence, Kansas, before it really became the collective. And I had an opportunity to share some of my research in progress at the MRC Research Symposium last year. So we can go ahead to the next slide. Thank you so much. So why this topic now? So I think it has significant implications. So the number of public Montessori schools in the US is currently estimated at 600, and it continues to grow. In addition, research has shown both a decrease in people entering the teaching profession and a substantial attrition rate. So more than 300,000 public school teachers and staff in the US quit between 2020 and 2022. Teachers who've left the profession often cited a perceived lack of authentic professional growth, a lack of support, or dissatisfaction with their feedback measures as contributing factors in their decisions to quit. And then finally, there's a pronounced gap in the research relating to public Montessori and teacher evaluation. All right. So my study approached this topic through the lens of self-determination theory, which holds that human motivation pulls from three main motivating needs, and those are autonomy, or agency and choice, relatedness, or a sense of connection, and competence, or the satisfaction that we feel when we feel capable. So this is just a very quick sample of some of my findings that I'm finding are relevant beyond public Montessori into the Montessori field in general, and even beyond that into the teaching profession as a whole. So teachers expressed a need for autonomy in the way that they received feedback. So one teacher said, I really wanted us to focus on a direction following goal, but I was told there would be no way to evaluate that. So teachers really valued setting self-directed goals for their own growth and often felt like they weren't afforded the same amount of choice that students are in a Montessori classroom. Second, there was a need for relatedness. So participants expressed a strong desire to have collaboration with other Montessori teachers for shared reflection. And that sense of interdependence is why they chose Montessori. So one teacher participant said that they really preferred having a coaching relationship because it's ongoing. And this participant said, the idea of having a coach come in, it's a collaborative effort versus having someone come in, observe, and walk away. So having that ongoing feedback in a relational way was really important. And then finally, a need for competence. So participants expressed wanting to advocate for Montessori's benefits, not just for external validation, certainly actually not for external validation, but really for people to trust in the process of Montessori. So they often felt like Montessori practices were undervalued in their communities and even in their schools. One teacher said, it's the Montessori piece that we have to guard and bring forward in a way that also defines our identity for the larger community. So the full findings point to actionable recommendations for policymakers, educators, and leaders, both within and outside of public Montessori. So these have implications for educators in general, including suggestions for effective feedback for teachers. So next steps for me include I'd like to conduct a larger scale quantitative survey to really look at different variables and intersectional identities and how they might play a role in teachers' perceptions about their feedback. And I look forward to continued collaboration with the MRC. So we're really grateful for you all being here today and hope that you'll get involved and support the work that we do. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Hey, Emily.
Caroline. Now we have Emily Daggett, who's in a PhD candidate in developmental psychology from the University of Virginia.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I first wanted to just share a little bit about my origin story in Montessori. So that's me in the blue dress in my first Montessori classroom at age 3. And I was lucky to attend Montessori all the way through age 14 and then have become a trained Montessori educator. I'm trained from birth to age 12 and have worked with various age groups, as well as worked with parents and adults who are interested in learning about Montessori education. And I've kind of followed my interest and curiosity in like how I became who I am to a PhD program where I am also very lucky to study with Dr. Angelin Lillard and at the University of Virginia. And because of that connection, I learned about the opportunity to meet other Montessori researchers, and that group, as it's been mentioned, has evolved into the Montessori Research Collective. And so I was able to participate and also share my work and get feedback and continue to be involved in the MRC to this day. So yeah, you can share the next slide. I'll share a little bit about some of the research that I've been involved in. The first is a large scale study that you may have heard about or hopefully have heard about, but if not, I'm going to share the link to that study in the chat. This was a randomized control trial, which is kind of the gold standard for education research. And what we were able to do is follow 588 students starting at age 3. All of the students were entered into public Montessori lotteries at 24 schools all around the United States. And some of those students were offered a spot in Montessori, and some of them were placed on the wait list. And so we followed that Montessori group as well as the control group, the children who are on the wait list, through the end of kindergarten. And we found that in the group that were offered a spot in Montessori, they had significantly higher reading scores, short-term memory, self-regulation abilities, as well as social perspective taking. And surprisingly, we also found that 3 years of public Montessori cost about $13,000 less per child. And that was mainly due to the ratios. So in traditional programs in the pre-K years, there's often more adults to children. And in Montessori, since we have the mixed ages, that is kind of the main cost savings. So I was lucky to be involved in this study. I came in near the end of the middle of the study, but we are continuing to follow these students and they will be in 3rd grade. And so we'll be collecting some data this coming school year. So stay tuned to see what happens there. And then another interest of mine is in kind of thinking about how we can better align our schooling practices with how humans evolved to learn. And it turns out that this really aligns also with Montessori education, because Maria Montessori, as we know, observed children, and she just kind of happened to have a mixed age group, and she observed children and adjusted the environment based on her observations. And so she kind of unintentionally revealed kind of how children evolve to learn through her work in the Casa dei Bambini. And so if we kind of look back through the anthropological record and look at how modern day hunter-gatherers and traditional cultures learn, and how children kind of absorb their culture in those societies, we see that one, that traditional schools are really misaligned with how humans evolved to learn by putting children in classrooms with same ages, where their movement is restricted, where they're getting a lot of direct teaching, which turns out to not be very common in traditional cultures. There's so many ways that many schools today are misaligned and can lead to challenges, with behaviors, mental health, teacher burnout, things like that. And so when we look at the conditions where humans evolved, these hunter-gatherer societies, and compare those with Montessori, we see that Montessori is much better aligned with the mixed ages. We adults are functioning much more as a model. Children are using natural hands-on materials. They have freedom of movement and choice, and they're learning within context. So often they're learning by doing rather than being told, knowledge and then having to apply it later. So that's been a really interesting project. Hopefully, we've submitted a paper related to this that hopefully will be published eventually. And this has got me thinking a lot about the adult, and kind of in line with Caroline's research, thinking about the adult conditions under which, adults are typically in these hunter-gatherer communities, and they're typically not isolated with 30 children, all by themselves. They're working alongside other adults and guiding children, but doing so in collaboration with the whole community. And so that's making me think about, coaching and other types of mentorship, as well as the school community as a whole, and how we can support teachers in their work with children. So thank you all for listening, and I'm happy to take questions a little bit later.
Thank you, Emily. And now I believe we have one more, and this is Heather White. She's not able to join us today, but she has sent a video, and she is a doctoral candidate at Sarasota University.
Do I need to stop sharing, Lindsay, for you to go ahead?
Are you seeing my screen now?
No, I'm not.
Is anyone else seeing?
I see it,
Yes.
Lindsay.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Heather White, and I am a doctoral candidate in Montessori education at Sarasota University. I'm disappointed that I was not able to join you all today live, but I'm honored for the invitation from MRC to share my research with you all. A little bit about me. I'm a nationally certified school psychologist, a nationally certified Montessori coach, and an AMS credentialed Montessori educator.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Is anyone hearing the sound?
I am.
Yes.
Okay, you're all hearing the sound. Nancy,
Yeah.
you're having trouble?
Yeah, I can't hear anything, but that's okay. When it's finished, I've watched it several times. Go ahead, and I'll be fine. I'll
with
just be here
credentials
waiting.
at both
Thank
the
you.
early childhood and lower elementary levels. Over the past more than 20 years, I have served in a variety of Montessori roles, including as classroom guide, administrator, consultant, coach, professor, teacher educator, and content creator. Throughout my career, I have worked alongside educators seeking to meet the needs of increasingly diverse learners while remaining faithful to Montessori principles. Those experiences inspire the research that I am sharing with you today, which explores how prepared Montessori teachers feel to support neurodivergent students in their classrooms, and what we can learn from their experiences to strengthen Montessori teacher preparation and practice. This topic is particularly important now because Montessori schools are serving increasing numbers of neurodivergent students while simultaneously facing growing expectations for implementing inclusive educational practices. My research was conducted using an explanatory sequential mixed methods design. I first surveyed Montessori credentialed teachers from a single Montessori teacher education program, and then followed up with interviews and group level analysis with a select group of participants from phase 1 to better understand the experiences behind the quantitative findings of participants with low, moderate, and high levels of perceived preparedness. The study was guided by 3 complementary lenses. First, the neurodiversity paradigm, which views neurological differences as natural forms of human diversity rather than as deficits to be fixed. Second, Albert Bandura's self-efficacy theory, which examines how confidence influences professional practice. And third, universal design for learning, which emphasizes designing environments that proactively support learner variability. The quantitative findings revealed what I would describe as moderate levels of overall preparedness. The survey specifically measured preparedness regarding knowledge and skills in 3 distinct domains: instructional content and practice, planning and managing the teaching and learning environment, and managing student behavior and social interaction skills. Montessori teachers reported an average preparedness score overall of 3.94 on a scale of 1 to 5, suggesting that many feel moderately capable but not adequately prepared to meet the needs of neurodivergent students, particularly based on the training provided to them throughout their TEP. The qualitative findings helped explain why Montessori teachers reported only moderate levels of preparedness through 5 main themes. Participants consistently described a gap between Montessori philosophy and the realities of implementation. Several teachers discussed learning through experience rather than through formal Montessori preparation programs. At the same time, Montessori teachers emphasized that Montessori philosophy itself provides a strong foundation for inclusion. It seems the challenge is not necessarily the philosophy itself, but ensuring that teachers receive sufficient preparation, resources, and institutional support to enact that philosophy effectively. These findings point towards several actionable recommendations. First, Montessori teacher preparation programs should consider strengthening coursework and field experiences related to neurodiversity and inclusive practices, ensuring explicit real-world application. Second, ongoing professional development, including mentorship, is needed so that teachers continue building confidence and competence throughout their careers, especially in the early years. Stronger partnerships between Montessori and special education would also be beneficial. Moving forward, my next step is to expand this research by collecting data from graduates of multiple Montessori TEPs. Doing so will help determine whether these findings are representative across the broader Montessori community. Viewed through the lenses of neurodiversity, self-efficacy, and universal design for learning, the message here is clear. When we strengthen teacher preparation and confidence, we expand opportunities for all children to flourish within authentic Montessori environments. My hope is that this research contributes to a future in which Montessori educators are not only philosophically committed to inclusion, but also fully prepared and supported in bringing that vision to life. I've shared my email address and my LinkedIn contact information here if anyone has any follow-up questions or should you want to continue the conversation together. Thank you again to MRC for the opportunity to share my work, and thank you all for being here and watching this recording today.
Okay, back to you, Nancy.
All right, Lindsay, thank you.
Sure.
We're just trying to, I feel like that many of you don't know how much rigorous research is really happening out there. And we really want you to, obviously, it's just a glimpse into what's happening, through our partner universities and this shared energy that we're finding within this Montessori Research Collective. I mean, to hear, Caroline talk about the kind of feedback that we need for, public school Montessorians, to hear Emily talk about cost savings of Montessori and the alignment of how children truly evolve and how that aligns with Montessori, to Heather talking about, recommendations for strengthening teacher preparation and practice with neurodivergent children is just a small portion of what's happening right now. And that's what we want you to know. But we do believe that we need this group of scholars to stay together, to convene, to continue to have these conversations, to mentor, to provide opportunities for more scholarship in Montessori. Now, I think one of you mentioned that, they really want to see, the big study that says that Montessori is better than all the other different educational alternative methodologies, but that's probably not going to happen. I mean, although if you look at Angeline Lillard, you're going to see, big quantitative studies. But what we want to do is we want to continue to build our research for policy purposes and also for practitioners. What Caroline, Emily, and Heather are doing are very scholarly, very rigorous research that will be appreciated and recognized in the scholarly university-based world. But we also want to mentor them to publish practitioner publications, because I think a lot of you feel like that's what you're looking at this and thinking, do I really want to know about self-determination theory or some of these theoretical frameworks that they're talking about? But in order to do that, we need to keep this Montessori Research Collective going. We need funding. We want you to, know that it's going on. We want to be able to inform you about it. Let's see. Someone just asked me how you support it. Okay, so let me put this in the, you want to talk, Nancy?
Sure. So we do have a website. I hope that each one of you will take time to go to our website. It's mrc.org, I believe. Am I right? Is it org? I'm terrible
Yeah, here,
with
I
this.
think this
Yeah,
is it.
it's
There.
mrc.org. And should I stop sharing so that we can see our friends and just
Yeah,
can
let's just
communicate?
say joy. Let me read this quote. Joy, feeling one's own value, being appreciated and loved by others, feeling useful and capable of production are all factors of enormous value of the human soul. Maria Montessori. And I hope we can honor her quote here and her thinking about staying together and producing a knowledge base that helps us deal with regulation and policy and brings Montessori to many more children. And you can stop that, Nancy.
Thank you. So Sharon has pointed out so many beautiful things about our work. I just want to take a minute to express my gratitude. I completed my doctorate a year ago, and we talk a lot about children, but my doctorate had an intergenerational focus, which I really hope that we can understand that this is lifespan development work that we're looking at with Dr. Montessori's work. I measured how a Montessori supported early childhood curriculum in combination with intergenerational work with older adults could mitigate ageism. And we found great success. So we're seeing a lot of thought provoking work going on in all venues. And it's not just limited to children. We're seeing adult and adolescent work. And we have many folks in our organization in the MRC that are really concerned about making sure we continue to have a venue, an audience, and opportunities to share this great work, but especially, as we mentioned earlier, to support practitioners and for your legacy as Montessorians to live on. This is something that gets overlooked in a way in our society, and we don't want your good work to be overlooked. We want people to know that you've given your life's work to this. And so we're grateful for this opportunity today to share with you, and we'll just look forward to you asking any questions that you might have. There's a lot of chats. I didn't see all those. Sharon, were you able to see if there's anything
Yeah, I
else?
was trying to go through a few. Yeah, people from all over the place. I did just now put in the
Lindsay put the link to the collective in there too.
yeah,
Thank
to
you,
the
Lindsay.
collective. And if you go to
Right.
support, please consider a donation.
Yes, we were, and we
we're
will honor
building
you.
infrastructure
Right.
to make this better. There will be a convening of the members who are mostly university scholars at George Washington in Virginia, October 4th and 15th. But on the 16th in the afternoon, there is a public sharing of the MRC work. And we'd love to have you join that, whether it's virtually or face to face if you're in the area, and hear more about, the work. But again, Nancy's right. I mean, it is about, continuing our legacy, but we definitely need the research in order to support it. So let's just open it up for questions if anybody'd like to comment or ask a question.
Can I go?
Sure,
Yes,
right.
please.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Rekha Ishudas, and I've been consistent on these talks. From India. I'm at Bangalore, which is the Silicon Valley of India. So I had a question pertaining to how it happens in India. We have a constant criticism, which I think is a commonality everywhere, about Montessori research being. We have a term called what? Researcher's bias. So how do you counteract that because we come with a hypothesis that this works, and I have this because, like Emily, I was a Montessori child when when I went into primary, so I've kind of had that because I only see it from that lens. So how do you counteract that? Is one of my questions. The other question, I have to frame it. I think go ahead with the answer for that if you have it.
Emily or Caroline, since you're the newest dissertation folks here, you want to try and explain that?
Sure, I can say a few things. I think that the reality is that every researcher has biases, and so I think to say that research, that any endeavor is completely free of biases is never going to be all the way true. At the same time, I think for me at least, learning more about the field of education, from traditional education, learning more about psychology and all the theories in psychology, has helped me kind of broaden my lens. And I think that's where I've ended up as, like I still am an advocate for Montessori, of course, but that there are many other ways that we can meet the needs of children, including thinking about how we align education more towards our evolutionary developmental needs. And so, I think that the more that we learn, the more that we're able to integrate other perspectives and just kind of, I think that's what's so important about Montessorians doing research in academia is that we're able to learn from others, but we're also able to share what we know. And so much of what we know from Montessori's work and from our work, all of these, years, is that these methods are effective. And even if we don't have all the data points to back that up, we have this history. And so we're like, the qualitative work is super important, but so is the quantitative work. So having more numbers is another way to kind of counteract bias. Is if you have, a lot of data points, you can look at that. And so anyway, that's a rambling answer, but I think that there's a lot of different ways that research can approach that issue.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Emily was saying. And just to piggyback, I think first, like Emily was saying, we need to acknowledge our own biases and our own worldviews, situate ourselves in the research, and disclose that with whoever's reading our research to say, I'm intentional, I'm reflective about where I'm coming from. These are conflicts of interest that I tried to avoid. This is how I mitigated the bias. Just really starting from there and thinking about a parallel with our Montessori practice. We sometimes get this impression that when we're observing in our classroom, we're being completely objective, but there's bias in our observations as well. So just being aware and acknowledging that bias, I think, is the beginning. I think also, like Sharon was saying, making sure that we are conducting rigorous research is really important. Partnering with universities, especially for neutrality, I think is really important. Having a collaborative space in which we can share what's going on in Montessori, but we can do so in a curious and even a critical way of saying, this is what's working. this is why, this is something that needs to be addressed, this is where we need to grow. I think that that is really important. And just like Emily was saying, that collaboration, I think of it as kind of turning the flower outward, that we know we have a good thing here in Montessori. We need to share that with other organizations, but we also need to learn from other modalities and other methodologies of what is working well with them and be in dialogue. So I think that was a really great question. And those are just some things that came to mind in addition to what Emily said.
Okay, I
Thank you,
formulated
Caroline.
the
Emily.
next part of my question.
Sure, go
Thank you
ahead,
for that.
Rika.
Yeah, so my second part of my question would be, is there vertical study? I mean, so my context is I come from a part of the globe where it's highly populated. So for us, competition is really big, like you would have heard about China. India is similar. So is there vertical study, cringeworthy question, to show the outcomes as data in terms of the outcome of like a vertical long span study to show, okay, a child who started with Montessori went on in Montessori in elementary, in earth kinder, if that could be, and how the outcome was. So are there people doing that kind of research? And is there something that I could read?
I think Emily's study that they're involved in right now is longitudinal. Am I correct, Emily?
Yeah.
I don't want to, yeah.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think there are other studies that if you do a search on longitudinal Montessori studies, you will find a couple of others. Longitudinal studies are not easy to conduct.
Mhm.
They're costly, they're time consuming, and it's very difficult to keep the same researchers together on a long-term basis sometimes. But we do have some, and I think Emily's is going to be a really powerful example of what they started with 3-year-olds, and now they've got third graders, and that's a long time. That's a long time in the research world.
You know,
Yeah.
Nancy, that's really valuable. I really appreciate you mentioning all of that. Christopher Glenn, I think, was one of the early American Montessori researchers out at Eugene, Oregon at the Franciscan School. In those days, there were schools beginning to hire a part-time professional researcher to do research on their children. Now, obviously, that's private school. However, the concept of setting up systems to encourage people to do ongoing 30, 40, 50-year research is something that I think is going to be really valuable over the years to come.
I agree. I was going to mention South Carolina. There's
Yes.
been research there that has used some really interesting methods to compare Montessori students in their public schools to matched students over time. And so, it's not exactly what you're talking about is following one child from birth onward, but it does give us a glimpse of what is happening there. So I found one document, but there's probably more out there if you look like South Carolina Public Montessori. Yeah.
And that's Furman University, right? Furman.
And that study's ongoing. That
Mhm.
study is ongoing.
Mhm.
That's a good question, though. What about Angeline Lillard's work in Milwaukee?
Yes.
Yeah, that I'm aware of. It's a very popular one around here.
Yeah, Dr. Lillard has done some longer term studies. And I think that this conversation also speaks to just the challenge of conducting research in Montessori in general. Not only is it hard to conduct longitudinal studies, but it's difficult to enroll students in a study and have sort of a double blind or like an experimental format. How do we determine which students benefit from Montessori and which are not allowed to? And how do we have a similar sample in both? Dr. Lillard's team has determined a good sort of workaround of let's look at families who enrolled in the lottery in a public Montessori system, those who did end up enrolling and those who didn't, so that they're comparable groups. But it's challenging. So we definitely need more Montessori research. And at the same time, there are a lot of challenges that are just inherent in the system.
And sometimes those studies can be the double-blind studies can be very difficult to maintain in a school environment. So we see more quasi-experimental type of things going on that don't sometimes lend to longitudinal work. But we can see quasi-experimental work that'll carry on for a couple of years. And I think we have to look at all the components of research and understand that it's really important that we're ethically approaching what we're doing too. And that's another important consideration.
Yes. I will say one more thing. Angela Lillard is going to be publishing a new book, and it's pretty much like a review of all the Montessori research up till, when she had the final draft. And so up to, last year or whatever. So that will be a really good resource because it's really compiling kind of the rigorous research that exists and the outcome of that research. So look out for that when it's out there.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
This is the kind of discussion that goes on at the convening of the scholars and the collaboration that we see. You can tell when Caroline's listening to Emily and Emily's talking to Caroline, one's talking about the adult and one's talking about the child, but it just seems to overlap. And that's what we want to see, with this convening and this continued kind of conversation about the research that's needed and the direction it goes. Other questions or comments?
I can go for another question.
Yeah.
I just thought I was taking too much time.
Please do.
With Montessori being, intuitionally, all of us who've been engaged with Montessori as a parent, as a student, teacher, any which way, facilitator, we know the merit of it. Then why is it still an offbeat system? Why is it not a mainstream system? Why is the madness not caught on?
Yeah. Go ahead, Caroline.
I can take a very initial stab at that. I think that even though we as practitioners have seen the value, I think it is still, there's a tension, right, between Montessori and sort of popular ways of being with humans and with children, even though what Emily was saying is that it's really aligned with evolutionary ways of being with children. There are more standardized ways in school systems, or maybe even like peer pressure that you might experience on the block of like, oh, well, my child goes to this school, or, just sort of like judgments that still keep Montessori as an alternative pedagogy rather than the mainstream. I also think that in society now, there's such a trend of like fast scaling and like large scale franchising, and that doesn't always work so well with Montessori. We need time to trust in the child's process and trust in the spiritual development of the adult. And so sometimes that can be a little bit of a challenge in the really consumeristic society of let's build this as fast and big as we can. Just some initial thoughts.
Caroline, that's a really important point you just raised. I mean, in the childcare industry in North America, at least, we're seeing big capital come in and buy center after center after center and turn them into part of a chain. And anyone who's involved in any way, shape, or form with that kind of program knows its opportunities and its challenges. And it's a very good point. I mean, the quality is really at the individual level of the practitioner and the individual level of the school. But it's challenging when you start getting beyond somebody like my friend Lisa here, who has one boutique school that she loves, versus someone who's dealing with 92 schools like the Guideposts network. It's all good. I mean, it's not that one's bad, but it is challenging.
Yeah, and I would just echo too that this is not just about Montessori like reforms, it's about progressive reforms generally, where the sort of traditional model has been very, very resistant to reform. And even because most schools of education are teaching different ways of being with children that are more aligned with child-centered, alternative pedagogy. But when teachers go out into the classroom, they tend to, for various reasons, kind of revert back to kind of that more traditional mode. So it's there's a lot of factors, but I think it's something that is widely a part of the school systems all over the world, because there's just this resistance to change.
And I don't think we have a lot of support on even if we look at a statewide level. Montessori is so unknown, and our country is huge. The United States is so big, it's hard to initiate and see things follow through in a consistent fashion. I think we have so many things. I've been doing intergenerational work in Great Britain and in Australia, and working with scholars in both those countries. Much easier there. It catches on quicker. They have a lot of people that follow closely. Their media has a different emphasis. So we really are kind of fighting against. I just did a little bit of research on social media and how it's affecting elder care in the United States, which is shocking what's happening. So I think we've got so many things we contend against in the United States that we don't see in other places as prevalently. And maybe that is biased on my part too, but I do see, when I work with other scholars from other countries, it seems like they don't have the roadblocks at times that we do here.
Well, another really important partner for MRC is the MPPI, the Montessori Public Policy
Yes.
Initiative. And that we continue to have conversations with them and understand, the kind of research they need as they deal with regulators and policymakers. And we do know them very well, and they're excited about our work. And again, we did apply for one grant as a collaboration. We didn't get that money, but at least we have a template now to go forward and apply for other grants, because we need each other in order to deal with the teacher credentialing issue for sure across the country. Caroline, I'm so irritated with Wisconsin and the fact that, to be a principal or an assistant principal in the state of Wisconsin, you got to have that traditional, principal certification first. And what we find, and research shows that we really need Montessori champions in our schools. And that doesn't always work with someone who just has a traditional credential. So there's a lot of work to be done there. So I'm on that one. I'm trying to figure that one out. So we do have a lot of conversations with our MPPI. And Montessori Public Policy Initiative is not just about public schools. It's about public policy. And that's what we have to deal with in order to, Rekha, is to try and increase, awareness, but also increase acceptance of Montessori in our across our states.
Yeah, we're trying to make an apple pie out of oranges. Sometimes we're trying to make an apple pie out of oranges.
We don't give up.
I know. There we go. We're not giving
right,
up
Tim.
ever. We go down fighting. Yes.
There you go.
Let
me segue into something you said, Sharon, the idea of MPPI and the good work. I think that this idea of public policy, not only being public, many of the people who are not directly involved with MPPI fail to understand what that really means. In Switzerland, the name Montessori is copyrighted. In the state of Maryland, Montessori is specifically regulated as an industry. Whereas in much of the nation, you can pretty much do anything you want and call it Montessori. I remember when Dr. Ann Newbert, long passed away, one of the leaders of AMS many years ago, was attempting to begin the issue of how do we, for research, define what makes a Montessori teacher a Montessori teacher, what makes a Montessori program Montessori. And all of this work that's been going on for so many years is so challenging as we both attempt to celebrate the diversity, because there is no one way of being Montessori, but there is a common thread. And finding that research definable definition, if you will, that collective of what is it that makes it Montessori other than brand name, is these are all part of the challenges. And public policy is, how does the government step in to protect the consumer and define what is it that we're talking about when we say something is Montessori?
Thank you for those lovely insights. I mean, it's so interesting. Although I sit across the globe, to you people, but I resonate totally with all your insights. Thank you so much.
We so appreciate you staying up and getting involved with us. What time is it in Bangalore right now?
What time it is? I think, yeah, 11:30.
That's
I've
what
been
I
attending
thought.
all the platforms, if you've noticed.
I do notice, and we appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you all for coming today. I'm so glad. I imagine that the Montessori Research Collective would appreciate donations large or small. I imagine you're set up for ongoing monthly donations like NPR. And what I hear you saying is we need money to be able to continue to be part of the National Research Association, to sponsor people if necessary, to attend, to disseminate information, to convene people together and at least try to do the work to make these things happen. And we really appreciate that you're out there. And I think for those of you who are able and willing, and I know Lindsay, as my co-host, would be the first to say, whether your gift is big or small, as an individual, feel free to make a gift of a cup of coffee, $10 a month, whatever you can spare, to the work, because that's one of the most valuable things we can do for the best interests of our work. And for those of you in Canada, for those of you in Australia, for those of you in India, encourage you to keep trying to gather researchers in your communities together to do the same thing. So we end up with a congress of global Montessori researchers who are attempting to both document what's happening, monitor what's happening, and influencing what's happening. Nancy, congratulations on your doctorate.
Thank you.
Emily,
It was
and
fun.
Carol, thank you so much for coming. And Sharon, as one of my oldest colleagues, thank you so much for the work that you and all of your colleagues are doing.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you for letting us share today, and we look forward to crossing paths in the future.
We will be sending out the recording of today's conversation with you. We certainly hope you will come back. We love having people come to our twice weekly forums and share research that's going on. So whenever you want a place to have another audience, we are happy to convene either a one-off or be part of a larger collective of conversations about emerging trends in Montessori research and data gathering. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you, Nancy.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank
We
you.
enjoyed it.
And have a great night, my friend in Bangalore. Bye, Bill.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good to
Soraya.
see you, Funky.
Hey, Funky, how are you? Hope
I'm
everything's well
good.
up at Fort.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to listen in. And I was a bit intimidated by the amount of knowledge and information that was shared, but I said to myself, just hang in there, keep learning.
That's right. That's right.
All we
Thank
care
you.
about for all of you people up in Canada is, are you doing okay with the air quality?
We are doing okay, and even though we got another round of pushback and political assault from across the border, but generally we're doing great. Normally, where we are in Fort McMurray is prone to fires, but this year we had so much rain. So it's
yes.
been, yeah, I don't think there's any likelihood of fires.
Thank
for
goodness.
us.
Well, stay
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah.
Thank
Please say
you.
hi to all our friends up there. Lindsay,
I will.
I won't see you next week. In fact, I think our decision is to take a pause next week because I'll be in Australia. You're
Oh,
going to
nice.
be, where are you going to be?
I'll be at the United Nations Human Rights Summit.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
So, and I think Clint is going to be at the World Series of Little League Baseball or something like that.
Oh, exciting.
I think we're going to take a pause and we'll have to send out an email letting people know no seminars next week. And we'll pick up again when I get back from Australia on the 6th.
Okay, that's awesome.
All right.
All
Thank
Bye,
you,
right.
and
Well,
have
everyone.
a
we'll
good
see you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.